Hello and welcome. My name is Bobby Hollinsworth. I am going to be your moderator this afternoon. We've got four fantastic presentations, three presenters. We've got one presenter who's going to go twice. The format's going to be 10 minutes, four presentations, and then after that, the floor is opened up for questions, okay? So if you have questions for one person, write it down, remember it, just because we're going to get to the questions after everybody is done. So please have questions. I will actually grab probably a microphone and go find people. If there's one around here, we actually got microphones around. So anyway, enjoy the presentation and we'll go ahead and get started.
Great. Thanks, Bobby. So my name is Nettie Lagasse, and I'm the Associate Director for Programs at NISO. NISO is the National Organization of Standards. So we are a US-based, but we consider ourselves quite international in scope, particularly in the modern age where people are communicating digitally rather than with analog means. So we've been moving to the name NISO and using the acronym as our name rather than the full name. And we are in charge of developing and maintaining standards for information transfer. So I'm proud to say that I'm standing here talking to you about these two projects, but I'm actually not the one who does any of the work creating them. I mean, I organize the projects, but the work is done by experts who are representatives of libraries, all different kinds of libraries and different professions within a library, vendors of different sorts, publishers of different materials, and systems providers who support this. And so everybody in our community, we really are in a very special community because our mission is sharing information. And so the standards, if we can agree on how to exchange information and data in particular ways, then it is possible to build more services on top of those standards and make differentiations between different services. So that's the gist of what we do at NISO. The people who work on the projects, I will stress, they are all volunteers. They all have their own day jobs and their own priorities and outputs and users. So sometimes projects move a little bit more slowly than you would if you were all working together in the same space. But that's okay, because as long as we get the work done, we've got a nice output. So the first project I'm going to be talking about is called Tracking Link Origins. And the problem that we're trying to address is that the discovery to delivery it's addressing a problem in the discovery and delivery landscape, which, as you probably know, is really heterogeneous. There isn't one company who controls all of the things that you are licensing and delivering to your users. And in the end, that's a good thing, but it does make things in the exchange of information a little bit more complex sometimes. And I just deliberately did not animate this image, because then it would be even more crazy. But the idea is that you've got all of these different entities. So over on the left, you've got the end user who is accessing discovery interface databases and websites to get information. Up at the top, you've got probably dozens or hundreds of different content providers that you may be licensing information from, or the content providers might provide their data through an aggregator, and then you obtain the information through an aggregator. Those interfaces might be presented directly to the user. The data might be presented through a discovery layer. Probably all of that data is also represented in your knowledge base, because your knowledge base, your link resolver knowledge base, if you have one, represents a way to get to information in a more context-sensitive way. And then over on the right-hand side, you've got the user actually getting to the content. So their pathway through this information could take any number of different paths. And the problem that we want to solve in this particular project that we're working on at NISO is where content providers We want content providers to give their data to discovery services because you want to be able to represent your material in your discovery service. But content providers would like to be sure or know more information when they get requests from the users that the users are actually getting to that content through the discovery service. So actually, it's more like giving credit to the discovery service for exposing the content. How can content providers get more data about where the users are ultimately ending up at? And you can see through all these arrows that because the user can be coming through any pathways, I didn't even mention the proxy server or authentication mechanism, add that on. It's easy for the pathway of the user to get lost, and by the time the user gets to the content provider, where they came from might not be apparent. So this group is trying to work on a recommended practice or a technical report talking about how we might better expose that data for use by content providers, but then also for libraries who would have a better picture of how their users are accessing the content and where they're going, because I think that's a good thing for everyone to know. So this link origins image is kind of the same thing as what I mentioned, that users might access content through a discovery provider, they might access it through a DOI link, or they might access through a link resolver, or they might access it directly, and all of these pathways, whether or not they go through authentication, whether or not the user is on campus or off campus, all represent different data paths that we're trying to get more discrete information on. So this group has been working for a little bit over a year, and I'd say that they are working through all of this. Is anyone from the group in this audience right now, the working group for this project, Tracking Link Origins? All right, so anyway, the outputs would be representing elements that come through these pathways to better understand them, documenting all the data flows for all of these different permutations to better analyze and understand and track the ways that users get through information, and then a recommended practice or a technical report, which is a slightly lower level document, to help understand and recommend to those who are working in this space how they might tweak their services or their configurations to better expose this information. So for example, it's my understanding that discovery services may provide a lot of customization options, which is wonderful. But sometimes the customization options that libraries may add might add more complication to these pathways. So exposing that for better understanding is will be part of the output for the group. And then also a communication plan for this project to help people better understand and use it. This is just, so I've got a few slides which just explain sort of how this stuff works. And the group has been starting to put together its draft recommendation from all the data flows. And I have to say, it can be a little bit, I've been looking at the draft and it can be a little bit tedious to look at. Sorry to say that, because it consists of a lot of code, URLs, strings, little bits of information that I think we need to figure out some way to better present it for better consumption. But one of the important things that gets passed when you're moving through this landscape is what's known as a SID or a source ID. And if you've worked with open URLs, then you might remember that. That's a piece of information that's passed on an open URL that signifies where the open URL is coming from. So that's one way of transferring the originator of the request. If all of this technical information, all of these parties can transfer the SID, pass it along, I receive it, I pass it along, then that's one way of transferring where the information came from. Another way is HTTP referrers. So when one looks at the HTTP logs, they can parse out or see in the log patterns information about the referrer, and that might be another way to get that information. So those are a couple of ways, and these are just some of the long and tedious examples that we'll have to illustrate or figure out, pick more pictures to add to the recommendation. So this group has been undergoing quite a lot of what I would call R&D research. The group consists of people from all parts of the industry, so many librarians who represent different discovery services, people who have the different brands of link resolvers, content providers, aggregators, and discovery service providers themselves. And they have been working very hard for many months to go through all of their different paths that they could possibly think of that might provide data and then analyze that. And this slide shows a few of those possible paths where you might say go through an Encore service to EDS, then to a different link resolver, through a proxy server or not, document that, see what kind of data comes out in the logs, and then save that. So generating a lot of test data. And then also at the same time, the group has conducted a survey of libraries and what kind of link resolvers and discovery services and authentication services are out there. That's more just of a way to validate that they are on the right track with their data gathering. Are there any other scenarios that they should be putting into their big bucket of data? And from the survey, we found that most people are using the big discovery services that you all know of. Most people are using the link resolvers that you all know of, and most people are using Easy Proxy, not a big surprise. So that at least helps. So right now, the group is, oops, sorry, that went back. There was just a thank you slide there, because that was the end. Okay, well, that's good, that's fine. So basically what the status of that project is that the group is working on its draft output. I think it's gonna be a few more months in the making because we've got to figure out some way to make it a little bit more digestible, but you should see that output early in the year. So happy to take questions at the end. All right, so moving right along into the next presentation is an entirely different project. That's part of the fun of my job is I get to be sort of a master of all trades, jack of all trades and master of none, because I get exposed to all of these different initiatives. But as I said, it's really the volunteer experts on the groups who are the brains behind the outputs. So the next project is called eBook Metadata. That's the short title. And the longer title is, oh, actually, we didn't write it down. It's got a very long title that describes working with metadata in a supply chain. So if you are dealing with ebooks in your library, then you should be aware that the supply chain is really pretty complex for metadata. And I can share this diagram with people offline. This was supplied by Joshua Talent, who is a consultant in the ebook industry, and he put it together for another presentation a couple of years ago. And I like it because it's so dense, but it doesn't really show on a PowerPoint slide that well, mainly because it's a vertical slide, and PowerPoint slides are getting more and more horizontal, but I'm happy to point people to it. The other thing about it is it does not actually explicitly mention libraries, which is a little bit of a pity, particularly in this audience. But the point of this is showing that information that's applied to an ebook gets added at different stages by different people. The data goes back and forth and may get updated over time. And it's used for all kinds of different purposes, mainly, initially at least, sales, and then discovery, possibly by retailers or people who want to buy it, and then delivery, getting the book to a user, and then in libraries, of course, we want users to discover books that are pertinent to their research interests. But we're also concerned with deaccessioning, making sure that our collections represent the best kinds of information available to our users, and ultimately making sure that we're preserving these ebooks. I think that's a very important aspect of the ebook project. So the point of this project, all right, was to basically make sure that everyone who is part of this life cycle can help each other out as much as possible. So this group, this working group, consists of the usual suspects of publishers, of trade books and academic books. There are also people who work with the Book Industry Study Group, which is an organization of book suppliers. There are librarians, there are aggregators, there are jobbers, and other people who work with books, and then others who work with preservation. So everyone is coming to this working group with their own expertise and their own requirements for the ebook data and their own aspirations that, something like, I wish that the ebook metadata that I receive for the thing I do had X or Y or Z, or I use this particular field to carry out this task that I do, but you use the same field for something entirely different. How can we get along with our shared requirements for this same body of metadata, and how can we communicate across a range of metadata standards? So you can also see that not everyone uses MARC. In fact, it's as you know, it's a very library-specific standard. There are other standards like ONIX used in the book industry. BITS is used by book publishers for XML descriptions. And then, of course, we have identifiers that are used, ISBNs, DOIs, and so on. So the stakeholders that I just mentioned. And the goals of this group are, as described on the slide, describing what the minimum metadata would be to do description of ebooks. So what can we all agree on are the elements that we all need for all the things we do. And then talk about the ambiguities in the particular elements that we are all using. And think about what standards are most useful for particular purposes, and then provide guidelines for the use of those standards, hopefully for as many possible stakeholders as we could, and then develop rules for matching ebook metadata. Of course, I think for anyone who's managing ebooks in a system sense, matching is an incredibly important task. And then also ensuring harmonization. The idea is that this project is not creating anything new in terms of, it's not a new standard. That's the last thing we need, is another standard for ebook metadata. But with all of the standards that are in use, how can we each make the most of all of them? So the participants, as I mentioned, these are all the industry experts who are on the group. It's really, I'd say, quite a luminary group of people who really know their stuff and who are volunteering their time and think that the project is an important thing and want to make sure that it is a success. We also have the co-chairs of the working group here in the room, Alistair Morrison of Johns Hopkins and Ravit David of University of Toronto, and they've done a tremendous job in organizing this set of people in their outputs. So what's going on with the group and what's its calendar? This group has gone through several different phases of kind of generating pain points, documenting what kinds of things need to be addressed, and it's currently probably at the end of its, what we're calling the third phase. The first phase was concentrating on identifiers and authorities and dates, because these were the metadata elements that were felt were the most, I don't want to say problematic, but had the most possibilities for expansion, explanation, confusion. There's a lot of expectations around these elements. So the group split into libraries, publishers, and aggregators, and then talked about these. They talked about these elements. There was an identifier group, a dates group, and a authorities group that explored that and brainstormed on these. And then moved into a second phase of talking about how do these data get transmitted and what are they used for? And for that, they were more the stakeholder specific. So libraries talked about them, publishers talked about them, and aggregators talked about them. And then now on the phase 3, they are documenting further use cases for the use of these, making sure that all of the pathways and how the information is used is illuminated, and analyzing what kind of recommendations might be ahead. So the next phase is probably the hardest phase, is the drafting of the recommendations, because you're doing all of your exploration in the first 3 phases and brainstorming and creating use cases and pain points, but then you've got to decide what you want to do about it. So that work is still ahead. The target is that a draft for comment would be available by the time of ALA in February, so that we can launch the draft for comment at ALA and provide a 30 days for people to react to it, provide feedback, and then after that, the group will address those questions, make changes to the draft, and it would be published by the time of ALA Annual in June. So that's it for those. Just some samples, and the slides will be available. I'll put them up. Samples of the use cases that the group has been creating. Pain points. That's always a nice term. What pains you? Everyone's got something to say about that. And then documenting further analysis. And this is all the kind of information that will eventually be put into the draft, at least as appendix. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Camille Cooper. I'm an associate librarian at Clemson University, where I've been since 1998. And my presentation is like, reply, and buy using social media as a collection development tool. So just a little, I guess, question of interest. So if you were to search the major library literature databases for the use of Facebook by academic libraries as an outreach tool, just think, what do you think is the earliest article that would mention that? Oh, sorry. 2006. Okay. Now, what about faculty and social media? So Inside Higher Ed does an annual survey called Faculty Attitudes on Technology. So in their most recent one, what percentage of respondents do you think said they use Twitter or other social media to talk about their professional work? How many think it was 10%? Okay. 30%. 50%. 10%. I know. And the respondents were asked to indicate overall, not just on this question, what disciplines they identified with. 50% of them were either in the social science or humanities. So you may ask, with only 10%, what am I doing there, right? Well, let me tell you about my home turf. I work with the English department and performing arts. Today I'm going to talk about the English department. I have been their librarian for 18 years. Okay, so they know me pretty well. They have 34 tenure-track faculty. 17 of those have friended me on Facebook, and I think that's very important. They have invited me into their space. I did not ask them to friend me to then stalk them, right? And of those 17, 9 of them post at least weekly, right? So remember that figure from the Inside Higher Ed survey was 10%. Okay, so 26% of them, or over a quarter, post at least weekly on Facebook about their professional interests. Now, this is tenure-track faculty. I also follow non-tenure-track faculty, and I purchase for their research interest and as well as their creative ones. There's also a PhD program associated with the English department, I follow their page, and I buy for those students. Those students are future faculty. This is also a program that has somewhere between a 95 and 100% placement rate in tenure track positions. So it's very important for me to support their needs as well. So I was sort of late to Facebook. You know, I've been there maybe 6 or 7 years, and I kind of got on there unwillingly. But once I got there, I discovered, as we all have, that academic departments have Facebook pages. All right? Our professional organizations have Facebook pages. Conversations are going on. So I saw a faculty member talking about a film, and I got on there and said, would you like me to buy that for you? Yes. Right? So a lot of what I started doing was proactive, right? A faculty member posts something that they're interested in. I figure if they're interested in it, we should have it, right? And I don't know if you can see it from back there, but they're very appreciative. This faculty member said, Camille Cooper, you're the best, right? We all like to hear that, all right? They're so used to me being there now that I'm doing a lot of reactive purchasing. They tag me, Camille Cooper, right? Can we get this for the library? Of course, right? And they're very appreciative. This faculty member said, today the CU library called me in to pick up a book that Camille Cooper ordered for me/us, right? She got it for me, but it's for all of us. So there's this real community spirit that I feel like I've tapped into by going this route. And also, your reach is actually quite extensive. This is from the graduate student's Facebook page. Graduate student, again, Camille Cooper, right? Can we have this? Yes. 147 people saw this. Okay, so the student sees it, the student's cohorts sees it, previous students in the program see it, current and previous faculty in the program see it, their colleagues at other institutions see it. So they know that not only is our institution buying it, but that that's something that librarians can do and are willing to do. So how many of you are vendors or publishers? Okay, so a few. So I need to give you a takeaway, right? So I would say this, my constituents' research, they drive my purchasing. You know, unsolicited emails don't necessarily do it. So what I would say, and a lot of you may already have, you know, the little social media widgets on your page, put them there. I just put 3 to keep the slide clean. Make it easy for them to share things with me, right? And for databases, right? Like make those easy for me to share with them. You see the email icon? Again, half the tenured or tenure track faculty on Facebook, half are not. Those people email me, and that's okay, right? I want to be where they want me to be. Okay, and that's it. That's my contact information. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone holding up? Almost there. My name is Wenying Lu. I'm the head of cataloging at Santa Clara University. My co-presenter, Elizabeth Henry, unfortunately cannot make it to the conference due to unexpected circumstances, but she is standing by on the phone, and her colleague, Maria Laudi, is here in case of questions. So today's presentation is to share with you our experience in using mobile work list in streamlining our workflow in shifting collections. So what is mobile work list? Mobile work list is a mobile app created by Innovative Interface, and it is mobile, and you can download to your iPhone, iPod, iPad. And it's all of the data is stored in the cloud, so you can take it anywhere, anytime, 24/7 if you want to have it. So in fact, I have it on my phone here. I can show you later on if you are interested. And because of the service and functionality and customer service that they have with this particular app, Mobile Worklist has won a couple of awards in a row in the last 2 years. So how is Mobile Worklist being used by SCU and by other libraries? So this is a list of all of the things that many libraries have been doing. At SCU, we have been using it primarily right now for weeding, shifting collections, searching for items, books that have been missing in transit too long, and we even use it to gather statistics and do staff training. Okay? And people who have been using the Mobile Worklist library saying that they use it quite a bit, so we use it every day. So why did we start it with Mobile Worklist? And it all started with our special collection librarian. She said, the vault is getting so crowded, I need to shift the collection in there so that I can optimize the space in the vault. So she came to us and said, okay, what can we do? But I don't want to move the items outside of the vault, so what can we do? And we heard of Mobile Worklist and said, okay, this will be the tool that can help us to do this project. And we also have been doing some shifting project, moving low-use materials from the main stacks to the automatic retrieval system, ARS, so that we can grow space in the main stack for current and future acquisition because our stacks was packed. We are also trying to increase the study space for students, so we are doing some consolidation of locations such as folio curriculum. They may all eventually move to the ARS. So this will all come in handy with Mobile Worklist, making things easier. Also, we recently started a massive weeding program. We call it a program, not a project, because it's going to be thousands of books and many years to do it. So by doing the weeding, we'll be able to increase the discoverability of the items to the patron. So how does it work? This is our first example. Our law library is moving to another building, and there's not enough space for them to keep all of their books, so they let us select some of the books that we want to the main library. So they deliver all of the books that we have selected, and once they get to our place, then we turn on Mobile Worklist. So as you can see on the screenshot, so in Mobile Worklist, you can add a list. You can then create a new list. Then, once you click on Create New List, you can give it a name. And then in the middle, there's an icon. That barcode icon is for you. Once you tap on it, it will turn on the camera on the mobile device. And then you just put your camera on the barcode, and it will zap the barcode, and then you get the information of the entry into the Mobile Worklist. And it will show the title, the author, the call number, and the location. So the law library gave us over 300 items, so it all got into the list. And we can then, once the barcodes are scanned in, we then upload it to our iOS. So Mobile Worklist allows you to export the list back to your iOS, so you can export it to a list or send it as an email as a list. So we would, in this case, we export it back to Sierra, which is our iOS, and then do global update in Sierra to change the location, add notes, etc. So it's basically scanning the barcode and then move it to iOS, global update. Second project, there's shifting low-use items from Instax to the ARS. So we would generate these lists, like hundreds, like about 800 per list in the iOS first. Okay? And then we'll assign each list to a student assistant so that we can check quality, do quality control. But it can also be shared by different people logging in. So the student assistant, they will import the list from the iOS to the mobile work list. So here, they go turn on the login, use mobile work list, and they import a list. Once they import a list from the iOS that's available for access is available, and then they pick the one that they have been assigned to. Once they pick the one, they can rename it or not rename it. And once the import is complete, that list will be saved to their list, like my list in the term of mobile work list. And so then they open the list and go through each item, trying to retrieve the item from the main stacks. And as they go along, if they see something that's missing from the shelf, they can tap on the entry and then see more detail of the item. So in this case, you see on the screen, it says off campus. So just in between, just so happen, it had been checked out to our consortium. Okay, so they will be able to know whether this missing item is really missing or is it just unavailable, it's out. Okay. So with each entry, there's a feature that you just swipe the entry and then you get to choose whether you want to delete the item, the entry, or move the entry. And so in terms of this workflow, we are doing if they found the item, the student is to just delete the item entry from the list. But if they did not find the item, then they will move the item to a different list, say to the out list or to the missing list, so that their supervisor can follow up later. Okay. If there's another way to do the move. They can also just pick which one to move and then move all the item at the same time and then move to a different list. Mobile work list also has the start feature that you can swipe to start or unstar to do whatever you or heart desire. You want to mark it and then move it to a different list to do some statistics. That's what we do. Okay. Weeding program, basically, right now what we are doing is weeding things in the books in the ARS. ARS, the access to ARS is on the first floor. Our technical services is in the basement. So this way, when technical services will send the access services a list for them to pull, once the items are pulled out of the ARS, they will just scan using mobile work list to scan all of the barcodes in, upload that list back to the iOS so that technical services can update the record to say it's discarded, et cetera. While access services, they can just mark off the spine label and dump it into the Gaylord bin to be sent out to Better World Books. Okay. So here are the statistics on some of the projects we have done with mobile work lists. With the special collection shifting, we did about 2,000 books without moving them out of the vault. With the low-use item shifting from stacks to ARS, we moved 80,000 books without having the books having to go to technical services and then back up again. Okay? And with the weeding in the first phase, we'll be moving 40,000 books. So mobile work lists allow us to streamline the workflow. It saves staff time, staff labor, and it saves trees because we don't have to print anything a list. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for you guys to ask questions now. If you would like to come to one of the microphones or if you can't make it to a microphone, or you just want me to come bring the microphone to you, I will do that as well. So let's go ahead and...
Hi, I have a question about the mobile work list. So is that specifically for innovative ILS, or is it agnostic? So say you're an Alma library, could you use the product?
Right now, it's for Sierra only.
Oh, it's for Sierra only?
Yeah, even if you're a millennium, you have to migrate to Sierra in order to do it. So Sierra only right now, but I believe that the innovative has intention to develop to make it work for other ILS to be. So it's in the plan,
Okay,
but
thanks.
currently just for Sierra.
It's for Camille. I'm curious if you're also using Facebook and social media to communicate, things that you buy and other holdings to your constituents as well.
No, because in addition to being, Yeah, in addition to being the subject liaison for English, which means bibliographic instruction as well, I'm also the subject librarian for performing arts. I am the popular reading librarian, and I'm the digital humanities librarian. So I think that would be great to be able to do that. It's just a matter of time, my time. I mean, what I do, this is what I do over my cup of coffee 30 minutes every day, right? So it's not really time intensive. But I think that would be a great way to use Facebook, is to communicate out.
Hi, this question is also for Camille. I work at SUNY Purchase College and do a lot of work with undergrads on Facebook. And one thing we've encountered is that sometimes undergrads are a little bit hesitant to have librarians invading their social media spaces. I know you work mostly on a person-to-person level on Facebook rather than with campus pages. But I was wondering if you encountered any sort of resistance or uncertainty about having the library or a librarian kind of invading people's space.
Well, as I mentioned in my talk, all these people, with the exception of the graduate program page, all of these people have asked me to friend them. So they have actually invited me into their space, so that's why I don't really have that issue.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you guys for being here at our innovative lightning round. Give our presenters applause.